Let's get into today's episode of Why We Succeed.
Yeah, I learned something new. Like I had no idea. Like selling shoes, selling the sweet treats. I mean, you was doing events. Like, I mean, you was out there getting it in.
Yeah. I've done a lot. And but I'm really happy for the journey. And even in the midst of all of that, because I graduated as an engineer, as a civil engineer. So I have
what? Oh my I never would have guessed. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I worked for like 8 years as an engineer before I walked away from that completely. Wow. So yeah.
What type of engineer were you?
A civil engineer.
Man, I had a feeling. If I had to guess, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I feel like you were a civil engineer.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. And I'll be honest, like if I look back and if I was to say what is like one of my biggest regrets is I originally started college wanting to be a computer engineer, and I let fear of science classes stop me from pursuing that degree. And when I look back, I'm like, man, if there was one thing, I mean, trust me, we all have little things that we go back, we'll tweak it, we'll change it a little bit. But that's the one thing that I look back. I don't not, get my degree in accounting and finance, not at all. Like, I think that definitely served a purpose. But I know engineering and computers is where I should have been. And, like for me, just learning that lesson of, even if you don't do it, and this is the reason why I'm bringing it up, is that you did it for 8 years, but clearly you've transitioned into something else. But just to have that in your back pocket, man, that's always going to be a skill that you can rely on if you ever need to.
Yeah, but let me tell you this, Jay, because this is what God had to reveal to me. Even with the engineering, I was like, why did I do this? For you, even as a computer engineer, you are a computer engineer and stuff though. So that's the thing. You didn't take that traditional route. You may not embrace that you have that title, but you are computer engineering some things. You're creating and curating content. You have to get behind these computers and these screens and make things happen. You are a computer engineer. You are engineering some things. And, for me, I wanted to go into communications. I always wanted to be on TV. That was like my dream. Always wanted to be on TV. And I wanted to start as a news anchor woman. That was always my dream.
I could totally see you doing that too.
That was my dream. But I let people talk me out of it because they made me feel like being on TV was such a pipe dream. It was so far-fetched. And so they were like, you need to do something to make money. So engineering sounded like money to me. And so that's why I went into that field. But it's so funny. God is showing me how I place that, God gives us the desires of our heart, right? He places them there so that then he can give them to us, right? Make them tangible. And he said, I gave you that desire. And so I'm still going to make good on it. It's just not going to come the way that you thought it was going to come. So I still dream of being on television. I still see me. And now I dream even bigger. I see my own talk show. So it's just like.
Yes. Yo, it's coming. It's coming. And you sharing that, it reminds me of, I recently read Steve Harvey's book, Jump. And, he was just talking about that was always his dream, is to be on television. And, I always wondered, and I'm sure other people thought it too, like as big as his celebrity has grown, like why he wasn't in more movies. And he shared in that book, like, yo, I never wanted to be a movie star. Like I always wanted to be on TV. So now it makes sense why we turn all the channels and he on them all.
Everything. Yeah, I love it. I love Steve Harvey's story. It's so inspirational, and I go and check it out. I have to read that book. I love to read, so I have to go read that one too.
Oh, if you haven't read that one, one of my mentors had recommended that book, and I'll be honest, like Steve Harvey has written many books, and I'll be honest, like even with the relationship podcast that I used to do, I never read the books. We talked about some of them, but like I never read, like Think Like a Man. Think Like a Man,
Act Like a Lady or something.
Right. Yeah. Like I never read those. So, but with my mentor, we got to trust our mentors. My mentor was like, yo, Steve Harvey's Jump, check it out. I actually listened to the audiobook. It's really short. I think it was like no more than maybe like 4 or 6 hours or something like that. Okay. And I was like, yo, this is good. He break down his whole journey, and I was like, man, so many gems, and learned a lot from him. I'll be honest, like I never had any disrespect for Steve Harvey, despite other people's view of him. but it just made me respect them to an even greater degree, because it's nothing like knowing a person's journey and what got them to where they are.
Absolutely. I love memoirs. I love to read people's stories, because I just feel like they're so rich and we can learn so much from them, just from their journeys and the things that they went through and how they overcame them. I love it. Yeah.
Right. So we know now you've had multiple ventures when it comes to the business space. Where in line did the publishing company come into play?
Well, it's so funny. Just what I just said. Like, I just love people's stories. I think that they're so rich. And so in 2016, I wrote and self-published my first book.
Okay.
And it had been something I had been saying for my like I said, I've been writing all my life. I've been writing, and when I was younger, I was in writing competitions, and I was.
Yeah, you really do this,
writer.
Kristen. Like I that's the one thing I'm learning. Like you don't have step. Like, yo, you go all in, and I love that.
You know what? Let me tell you, I got that from my grandmother. Shout out to my grandmother.
Shout out to Granny.
I got that from her though, because she always taught me, if you're gonna do it, do it. Like, go hard or go home. Right. And she wasn't saying that, but that's pretty much what she was saying. So everything that I try to touch, I try to, bring a spirit of excellence to it. I like to win. I'm telling you, that's why God put me up on game. I don't like to lose. I don't want to lose.
None of that.
I wrote my first book in 2016, and after that, it was like I had unleashed something. I had like pulled a plug, because I just began to write book after book. That year alone, I released 2 books. And then the next year, I had written another book. And before I looked up, I was like, oh my goodness, I got the sauce. Like, I got the sauce. And again, going back to what I said earlier, sometimes you just don't realize when it comes so easily to you that it's special. But people began to approach me, and they were like, okay, Chris, you wrote these books and you've been producing. I want to write a book. I've been saying this forever. And so then I began to create programs for them to write their book. And so before the Scribe Tribe was Scribe Tribe Publishing Group, it was just the Scribe Tribe. And I would bring together writers, and I would support them and give them tips and tricks and just kind of be their accountability. And they were finishing their books. And so I was like, wait a minute, we're on something here.
Yes, they getting it done.
And God, I kept hearing God say, it's time to level up. And I'm not going to lie, I was afraid, because I was like, God, that's a huge undertaking. I like just telling them what to do and then pushing them on their way, and, just helping them from that aspect. I was not really ready to launch into a full-fledged publishing company. But then, going back to that,
yes,
I had someone approach me, and she wanted me to manage a project and help her publish it. And she's like, "You're a publisher, right?" And I was like, Yeah, I'm a publisher. Because God had already called me a publisher. He had already said, "You are a publisher, ma'am." So I said yes. And so as I worked with her, that was my first project. And and since then, I don't even know the number of books we have published, but that was in 2019. The pandemic got all my years screwed up, but that was 2019. That was actually, we started in 2018. And so by 2019, it was the end of 2018 when she came to me. By 2019, we had began to release like all of these books. And I've now journeyed off into children's books. We're releasing our very first children's book within the next month or so. So it's just like, this has just blown up. And I'm like, God, only you. Like, you knew. Right. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's so dope. And I'm glad to hear that you're venturing into children's books, man, because that's a really, really dope niche to be in. And, when I mentioned earlier about doing audiobooks, one of my clients, they write children's books. And, it's dope, to take that story, bring the little kids to life. And yeah, man, I'm happy to hear that you're going to be getting into that, publishing some children's books. I think that is so dope.
Let me tell you something. I did not even know that you were doing voiceovers for audiobooks. That is so good to know.
Look, we learned about each other today.
But that is so good to know. See, your network, it determines your net worth. It's so many resources that are in the people that you know. It's just amazing.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Why We Succeed. If you value relationships and believe they are the true key to success, be sure to subscribe. To watch this full discussion and gain access to exclusive content, join our Patreon today. The link is in the description. Thank you, and we'll catch you on the next episode.